Capcom's Resident Evil is arguably the biggest horror franchise in gaming. This is due in no small part to the impact the IP left on the video game landscape, crafting iconic settings, beloved characters, and innovative gameplay. Whether it be the groundbreaking use of 3D at a time when other franchises were just dabbling in it, the revolutionary development of a camera system that has become ubiquitous within the medium, or the invention of a popular subgenre, Resident Evil has been a forefather of gaming as we know it. This franchise is responsible for many of the staples in modern gaming, such as the over-the-shoulder camera angle, resource management-based gameplay, and shooting mechanics. Without Resident Evil to lay the groundwork, games such as Five Nights at Freddy's, Devil May Cry, Bayonetta, Outlast, etc. wouldn't exist. It's a no-brainer that Capcom would decide to remake some of their most popular games. So far, we have received a remake of the first Resident Evil, Resident Evil 2, Resident Evil 3, and Resident Evil 4. For those of you unfamiliar with the history of the franchise, let me give you a brief verbal history of Resident Evil and its remakes to show you why we need another remake of the first Resident Evil game. The first Resident Evil game was released for the first PlayStation console on March 22, 1996 by Capcom. Originally intended as a 3D remake of the Famicom game Sweet Home, Resident Evil, known as Biohazard in Japan, became the first entry in a very successful and long-running franchise. The first Resident Evil stands as a seminal landmark in gaming, creating the genre known as survival horror. If you've never heard of or played the first Resident Evil, let me give you a brief summary of the story. In the summer of 1998, STAR's Alpha Team, a special forces unit of the Raccoon City Police Department, is sent into the Arklay Mountains following a series of cannibalistic murders and the disappearance of STAR's Bravo team the night before. They get attacked by zombie Dobermans and become forced to take shelter in the Spencer Mansion after their pilot Brad Vickers dips out quicker than a deadbeat dad. The team gets split up between two campaigns, with Jill Valentine's campaign being the easy mode and Chris Redfield's campaign being the hard mode, proving once again that women always have it easier than men. Jill is accompanied by Barry Burton throughout her campaign. She discovers that Barry may be untrustworthy, and the player can determine Barry's fate by either trusting him to throw down a rope to Jill or by leaving before he can get the rope and condemn him to a painful death later. During Jill's campaign, Chris is imprisoned, and Jill has the option of either freeing him later or forgetting about him altogether, letting him die when the mansion explodes. Chris is accompanied by lone Bravo team survivor Rebecca Chambers during his campaign.
Whoa! What is it?
What? Oh no! Sorry, I didn't mean to do that. Yes, I'm Rebecca Chambers. I'm a newcomer. I just joined the STARS Bravo team last month. Well, I'm really sorry. Are you all right?
No, I'm not okay! You pepper sprayed me, you bitch! Chris has less item slots than Jill does, and Rebecca is a less involved companion than Barry is during Jill's campaign. Instead of Jill freeing Chris frees Jill. Both characters have different gameplay trade-offs. For example, Chris can take more hits than Jill can. While Jill starts out with the lockpick, Chris must carry around small keys to unlock various items and doors. At the end of both campaigns, you find out that your team captain, Albert Wesker, was behind everything that happened. You find out that he's a double agent employed by Umbrella, who lured both STARS teams to the Spencer Mansion to collect combat data. I know. Who would have thought that the asshole who wears sunglasses indoors would have been the bad guy? It's also revealed that Barry was just a pawn, as Wesker threatened the safety of Barry's wife and daughters if Barry didn't comply with his scheme. Wesker injects himself with the T-virus and allows himself to be seemingly killed by the Tyrant. We all know Wesker doesn't really die here. After a brief fight with the Tyrant in the lab, the partner character, either Barry or Rebecca, activates the mansion's self-destruct sequence. Either Jill or Chris fights the Tyrant on the helipad, blowing it up with a rocket launcher dropped by Brad. You know, Brad, the dingbat who stranded everyone earlier in the game. Everyone escapes, yada yada, roll credits. As stated earlier, this game pioneered a whole genre. The gameplay was revolutionary and set the stage for a whole niche of gaming, combining puzzles, combat, and resource management, made Resident Evil unlike anything in the gaming market that came before it. This game is very choice heavy. The limited amount of ammo and healing items forces the player to be judicious about their inventory. The ammo limitation in particular makes you evaluate which enemies to deliver to hell with same-day shipping and which enemies to incapacitate to ensure an escape when necessary. It's also crucial to conserve ammo in case the player enters a boss fight. The last thing the player wants is to experience entering the Tyrant fight without any ammo. That's like getting caught with your pants down. Why are you judging me, Tyrant? You don't even wear pants! The success of the first Resident Evil game spawned two extra releases, one titled Resident Evil Director's Cut. Resident Evil Director's Cut was released on September 30th, 1997, and featured additions such as 2 added difficulty settings, changed camera camera angles in certain cutscenes, and faster zombies. This re-release was critically and commercially successful. The other re-release was essentially the director's cut again, but with control changes and a particular revision to the game that made it memorable for all the wrong reasons. The second re-release, titled Resident Evil Director's Cut DualShock, dropped in August of 1998. This version of the game was made to support the DualShock controller, doing away with the previous limitation of only being able to move in 4 directions. This version also included a new soundtrack, composed by an up-and-coming composer from Hiroshima named Mamoru Samuragochi. I won't dive fully into the lore of Samuragochi, as it is quite the rabbit hole. If you want more info, check out Wang's video discussing the mystery of the man, the myth, the legend. It's linked in the description of this video. To make a long story short, most of the soundtrack was ghost-written like a Drake album. Samuragochi became infamous for pretending to be deaf, which is hilarious because some of the music in the DualShock soundtrack makes me wish I was deaf. Everyone in the Resident Evil community is likely familiar with the mansion basement theme, but in case you aren't,
All right, I gotta leave, okay?
John, we just started. Come on, man.
Listen, there's a lot to see in this life. Not wasting it here.
the comments on this track are absolutely hysterical, by the way. I'll read a few of them now. I want this played at my funeral as they lower me down. If I'm dead, I want everyone else's day ruined too. Man, Charlie Brown must have really upset the teacher this time. Fun fact, this was originally going to be used in a Peanuts short, where at one point, Charlie Brown would walk on his parents getting it on. Sadly, said scene was deemed too inappropriate, and the sounds ended up being used in this game instead. I like how the first note tries to set up the atmosphere, then the song degenerates into a man dying of flatulence with an out-of-tune trumpet glued to his ass. It's like staring at the sun, but with your ears. Beautiful. First result when you type in clowns farting in the basement. I just searched it, and it literally is the fucking first result. It's like the composer whipped his balls out and rubbing it on the keyboard. Thank you, Humongous 1501. Despite being such a revolutionary title in the gaming landscape, the original Resident Evil became dated very quickly due to laughably awful voice acting.
That was too close. You were almost a Jill sandwich.
Chris? Stop it.
Let me take care of them.
But,
Chris, get in contact with Brad right away.
okay.
That's right. This is the ultimate life form. Jill will join you too. What? Don't come this way! No!
A wonderful set of lines from Wesker that sound like a gay proposition.
Would you like to see it? Come with me. I'm sorry for my lack of manners, but I'm not used to escorting men.
Is this guy openly gay? Because he's definitely a homosexual.
Subpar texturing, and a bare-bones attempt at storytelling and characterization, the game was easily surpassed in popularity and sales by its successors Resident Evil 2 and Resident Evil 3 Nemesis. This would all change forever in 2002. On the franchise's 6th anniversary, a remake of the first Resident Evil was released on the GameCube to critical acclaim. Critics praised the suspenseful and enhanced atmosphere, citing added flourishes such as improved sound design, graphics that were incredibly impressive for the time, and meticulously detailed pre-rendered backgrounds. These were welcome quality of life changes that elevated and surpassed the survival horror standards set by the original game. While I agree that the graphics and sound design were impressive for the time period the game debuted in, I am not a fan of particular elements of this game. Let's start out by discussing the tank controls. Resident Evil old heads love tank controls and beg for their reappearance in future titles. I don't like tank controls because they can feel very clunky and unresponsive at times. Shooting at enemies feels like an annoying dice roll, and it's very unwelcoming to a newer audience of gamers who tend to prefer over-the-shoulder or first-person controls. Secondly, I am not fond of the lack of a canon ending. Yes, there are multiple endings. In Jill's playthrough, you can either survive alone, survive with Barry, survive with Chris, or survive with with both Barry and Chris. In Chris's playthrough, you can either survive alone, survive with Rebecca, survive with Jill, or survive with both Jill and Rebecca. In Jill's scenario, Rebecca is not shown as having survived the mansion incident, while in Chris's scenario, Barry is completely absent. None of the endings show all 4 characters mentioned surviving the incident, which contradicts series canon. We know canonically that those 4 all survived, but we never see it in the game. Thirdly, the story is still lackluster and feels empty. The characters still don't have much in the way of personalities in this game. They seem to be as one-note as they were in the original. I get that this is at a time in the story before they become battle-hardened, but I would appreciate more dialogue between characters. In the biographies of these characters, it's stated that these characters have histories with each other. Why not show that through interactions? Why leave it up to the video game manual to do all the heavy lifting? This game had a major advantage that the original lacked: hindsight. We knew more about these characters by the time the remake came around. Why not have an interaction toward the end of the game in Chris's playthrough, where Wesker delivers a veiled threat by asking about his sister, serving as a direct segue into Code Veronica? The game sets up nods to future games through notes and references to the discovery of the G virus. Why couldn't the writers have utilized this to add depth to the characters? It makes no sense to me. The voice acting, while not laughably bad like the original, still feels stiff and wooden at times. Some of the lines of dialogue trip over themselves and feel poorly worded.
A second late, you would have fit nicely into a sandwich.
They should have either kept the original Jill sandwich line as is, or they should have scrapped it if they felt like the original line was too corny. Fit nicely into a sandwich is such an unnatural and clunky way to rewrite that line. Let's get into what I do like and appreciate about this iteration. The atmosphere in this game is so chilling. You feel a sense of dread and unease every time you traverse the corridors. Tension exacerbated by drawn-out cutscenes of doors creaking open. Although, I wish there would have been an option to disable those animations in the 2015 HD release. A setting like that would have been a godsend to speedrunners and anyone replaying the game multiple times, especially with all the backtracking that the player has to do throughout the game. I understand this was necessary for older systems such as the GameCube, but the HD release has no such excuse. That technical limitation no longer exists, so it would just make more sense to have an option you can toggle at will. But that's just a nitpick. A game— damn it, I miss MatPat. I also appreciate the added lore in the way of the inclusion of Lisa Trevor as a character. Introducing the story of the Trevor family not only helps contextualize the existence of the mansion, but also provides more of an insight into how Umbrella procures test subjects. The addition of the Trevor family also demonstrates the absolute depravity of the founder of Umbrella, Oswald E. Spencer. Spencer hired Lisa's father, George Trevor, to create the Spencer Mansion. Upon completion of the mansion, Oswald Spencer kidnapped George's wife and child for experimentation purposes and locked George within the mansion to die a slow, horrible death. Lisa Trevor was injected with different strains of the T virus, resulting in the discovery of the G virus within her body. Including Lisa also adds direct continuity with Resident Evil 2, providing a tragic origin story for the virus that would become an integral part to various future storylines. This retroactive expansion on lore and characterization is what I wanted more of in the remake. The updated graphics are nice and all, but I want these popular characters who've been around for nearly 30 years to receive extra time to shine. Characters like Rebecca Chambers and Barry Burton haven't been in a mainline RE title in 22 years. As years passed, fans wondered if any other game in the franchise would ever be remade. Cut to January 25th, 2019. 21 years having passed since the initial release of Resident Evil 2 in 1998, Capcom released a remake of the game, made within the RE engine. RE2 Remake did away with the tank controls and pre-rendered backgrounds of the original. Enemies such as Mr. X received massive overhauls, significantly adding to the immersion of the game. What do I think of Resident Evil 2 Remake? To put it simply, I love it. My husband and I played it together earlier this year and we had a blast.
Zombies behind you.
Shit! We've been going through a lot this week. We haven't recorded in a while because oh, it's the liquor hallway, babe.
No, fuck him.
What? He's like, did I stutter? I'll fuck him. The ambient sound design and the dynamic lighting weave together to create excellent immersion. Resident Evil games don't usually scare me, but after grabbing the maiden medallion near the library, a liquor fell down from the ceiling on top of Leon and I jumped a bit. There's this perfect feeling of dread you get when you enter a hallway and hear lickers crawling around. There's a looming sense of fear when you hear Mr. X's footsteps paced around the RPD as he searches for the player.
Is that
The combat system is also very engaging and satisfying to master. Shanking a zombie dog mid-air or having to cut Marvin to pieces with the combat knife because you ran out of ammo shows that you can take multiple approaches to eliminating the undead. As for the characters, Leon and Claire are great protagonists. Claire is defined by her unbreakable spirit, her efforts to find her brother Chris, and her compassion for Sherry Birkin. Claire and Sherry have a dynamic that tugs on the heartstrings and brings out the best in both characters.
Sherry, don't worry. I will get you whatever you need, okay?
Why are you doing this?
Because I care.
Thank you, Claire.
It's extremely easy for child characters in games to be annoying, a la Baby Mario and those little jerks that pester you in Windfall Island and Wind Waker. But Sherry Birkin is endearing because of her importance to Claire. As for Leon, he's the definitive fan favorite character. I remember going to Hollywood video rentals with my mom and my sister in 2006. Resident Evil 4 had come out the year before, and I was toddling around the video game section. I saw the GameCube box art for RE4 on the display, and my reaction to seeing Leon on the cover was pointing and saying, "Wow, that boy is pretty!" In my defense, I was 5 years old. Who am I kidding? 24-year-old Katya thinks he's pretty too.
Fuck, he looks kissable.
The point is, Leon is such an iconic character. How did they handle him in the remake, you may ask? Capcom handled him wonderfully. You really get the vibe that he is a rookie cop in this iteration. In the original Resident Evil 2, Leon is more stoic and doesn't react to his surroundings as much. In the remake, Leon actively reacts to his surroundings in real time, adding to the immersion.
Hope I don't have to write a report on this.
He also shows brief moments of vulnerability through his interactions with Ada Wong. This version of Ada is my favorite version of her in any RE game. I really wish they would have brought back her voice actress for RE4 Remake, but I digress. Leon and Ada's chemistry feels more organic in this iteration, with the whole John subplot completely done away with. Instead, Ada pretends to be an FBI agent to gain Leon's trust. This makes more sense for Leon to trust someone claiming to be in a position of authority than to trust someone looking for their boyfriend. I also believe this change in storytelling gives Ada more agency as a character. Aside from the actual characters, the RPD itself feels like a character in this game. You can poke and prod through every nook and cranny at will, discovering little Easter eggs and secrets that fill in story details. The over-the-shoulder perspective enables the player to closely observe their surroundings in ways the fixed camera angles of the original couldn't. You can fully explore and roam through the station. This adds to the idea that this police station, in-universe, is a place where people worked, a place where people did menial tasks, and a place where coworkers giddily anticipated the arrival of new staff, as seen by the Welcome Leon sign and the letters discussing the cute little combo puzzle that his coworkers set up for him as a way for him to learn their names. This opens the door for more environmental storytelling. By taking in those details, this endears characters more to the player. By making the player empathize with the characters, the player in turn cares more about the stakes involved. The main drawback of this game is the second run scenarios. In the original game on the PlayStation, the player had 2 discs to swap between in order to experience both Leon and Claire's stories. These scenarios employed a gameplay feature known as the zapping system. This system enabled choices from a first playthrough to affect the second playthrough. For example, if you were to play Claire's A scenario and picked up ammo, that ammo might not be there in Leon's B scenario. In the original game, the canon way to experience the game is Claire A, Leon B. This clarity of timeline is absent from the remake along with the zapping system. In the remake, Leon and Claire fight pretty much the same bosses and traverse the same paths. This fact leads to contradictory plot holes, such as who canonically fought which boss, how they did not encounter each other when moving through identical paths in the same time frame, and the overall order in which events take place. There are only small differences between scenarios like puzzle solution changes, slight encounter changes with Mr. X, and barely noticeable changes in dialogue. A game that executes the same idea better is Sonic Adventure, surprisingly. You experience the same cutscene a billion times, but each time there are changes to line deliveries to reflect each character's perception. Dr. Eggman has a more menacing line delivery in Tails' campaign because Tails' character arc in that game is to overcome his fear.
I am Dr. Robotnik, the most cunning scientific genius in the world!
Meanwhile, Eggman's line delivery in Sonic's campaign is more theatrical and over the top because Sonic doesn't view Eggman as much of a threat.
I am Dr. Robotnik, the greatest scientific genius in the world.
Eggman is more of an annoyance to Sonic. Some characters remember things differently. They're not necessarily unreliable narrators. The truth lies somewhere in the middle. It also helps that in Sonic Adventure, all of the characters cross paths consistently and events aren't contradicted between campaigns. Imagine that approach but in Resident Evil. Claire and Leon are very different characters who approach their surroundings in unique ways. Leon is the naive idealist who struggles to get by.
I want to find out what's happening here and stop whoever's behind it. Helping people like them? That's why I joined the Force.
While Claire is the headstrong go-getter who powers through obstacles with her optimism and determination.
You don't know what you're up against. I have a pretty damn good idea.
Leon is more reactive.
Holy shit!
While Claire is more proactive.
Save your thanks until I get you out of this place.
Their perceptions of certain characters and story events would be different depending on their interactions. The only cutscene I can think of that adheres to this approach is when William Birkin evolves into G3 and yeets his wife into a wall. In Leon's version, Annette forces him to fight G3, while in Claire's version, Claire voluntarily takes on G3. This instance of missed potential degrades future playthroughs, sparking cynicism in place of enthusiasm. Playing the second scenario feels more like a chore than a fresh way to experience the story. Overall, Resident Evil 2 Remake is an atmospheric powerhouse that is less of a remake and more of a remix of its 1998 counterpart. The second story deficits bother other players, but this detail doesn't inhibit my enjoyment of the game. It can be improved upon, but I still appreciated this title for being so intense. Apparently, many players agree with my assessment of this game as RE2 Remake is currently the best-selling Resident Evil title. RE2 Remake was the shot in the arm that the series needed after middling games such as Resident Evil 6.
I tell you, this man is so fine. This man is scrump-dilly-icious.
And Operation Raccoon City.
Go flip!
Even though Resident Evil 7 was a success, fans felt like that success could have just been a fluke. Resident Evil 2 Remake proved that Capcom was making a comeback. The critical and commercial success of Resident Evil 2 Remake kicked off a wave of Resident Evil remakes. In development at the same time as RE2 Remake was RE3 Remake, which released on April 2nd of 2020. RE3 Remake received mixed reception as critics and players alike were not fond of cut content, rushed story beats, the inability to explore the RPD as Jill Valentine, and the over-reliance on scripting for segments in which the Nemesis is featured. In the original Resident Evil 3 Nemesis, the titular Nemesis was a more persistent enemy that would follow Jill anywhere. The character encountered him on more occasions, and his AI was more intelligent in the original. In the remake, Nemesis chases you through a linear city until a boss battle takes him out of commission. You don't see him for a while.
Bitch can't even swim.
You fight him in an animalistic form, he infects you, and he goes on sabbatical. You don't encounter him again until he shows up at the underground facility and murks Tyrell. He chases you for a bit and then disappears. He fights you again in an arena filled with zombies crawling through vents on the sides. From there, you have to shoot him down when he's on top of the tanks. And then you encounter him once again, shoot his balls, and charge up the railgun to blast a hole in him larger than the Gulf of Mexico. Shoot Nikolai, game over. And that's it. That's the whole game. I get why critics were saying that this remake feels like a rush job. This game's runtime is so short that it makes Rivers Cuomo look tall. You can play through this remake in an incredibly short amount of time without even speedrunning it. There aren't that many sections in this game. Raccoon City feels more like Raccoon Street. In previous Resident Evil titles, such as Resident Evil Outbreak and the original Resident Evil 3, Raccoon City is a sprawling metropolis with plenty of areas to explore. The best way I can describe this conundrum is if there was a zombie apocalypse in Nashville, Tennessee, where you can only explore Broadway, dodging zombie bachelorette parties and Morgan Wallen's sky chairs, or as Tennesseans call it, Tuesday. I've been typing up walkthroughs of the remakes, and Resident Evil 3 Remake was by far in a way the shortest one. It's incredibly bare bones and lacks substance. The whole second half of the game is basically RE2 Remake again. Sewer? RE2 Remake did that. Carlos's RPD section should have been Jill. Nest 2? It's just Nest, but smaller and shittier. With all of the reused assets, RE3 Remake should have just been a DLC. It's shameful to charge a full game's price for this half-baked wasteland, and And then I realized just how much was left on the cutting room floor from the original. Gravedigger? Gone. The park? Gone. City Hall graveyard clock tower? She gone. Cameo from Barry at the end? You could forget about that, sister. Do you want to know why they caught all this stuff? So they could spend development time on an online multiplayer game that everybody forgot about as quickly as it came out.
You serious?
There's even a whole gameplay mechanic that's been left out yet again. I'd argue this exclusion was more egregious and consequential than RE2 Remake's exclusion of the zapping system. In the original RE3, the player had a choice system that affected their path in the story. For example, when Nemesis kills Brad, Jill has the choice of either fighting Nemesis for a chance at loot and Brad's stars key, or she can run away like a little baby bitch and maintain her ammo. It's high risk, high reward. This mechanic exemplifies the crux of the entire franchise. Strategy, evaluating risk versus reward, and managing scarce resources. By removing this feature, RE3 Remake has significantly diminished replay value. I've been negative, so it's time to say some positives. For starters, Carlos was massively improved as a character. Instead of being a one-note Latin stereotype like he was in the original,
all the foxy ladies love my accent.
Carlos is a more well-rounded and charismatic character this time around.
Maybe. Surely a tall drink of water like yourself can put out a few flames.
Fuck you.
I'm not gonna die on you, leave you in a cold, cruel, Carlosless world.
Okay.
Firstly, his attempts at flirting with Jill are more toned down and restrained.
Don't you like that in a man?
No thanks. He's all yours.
Old RE games struggle a lot with writing side characters in games. If the protagonist is female, you can count on the primary male side character to flirt with her to an obnoxious extent during an apocalypse. Take, for example, Steve from Code Veronica, or Carlos in the original game.
I know. You want to ask me out?
If I was a girl in the end times and some random dillhole was trying to get into my pants, I'd let the zombies eat him. Wouldn't even feel bad about it either. On another note, Jill's character change in this remake is particularly interesting. In this iteration, she seems more aggressive at first.
Here you go. We can use this to stay in contact.
I know what a radio is.
But you start to see her care more for Carlos as the game progresses.
He thinks he can do this by himself. I'm going after him.
Jill has moments of vulnerability, as seen in her being haunted by the events in the mansion, and her brief denial of the severity and hopelessness of Brad's situation after being bitten. This wraps around to my main problem with the game: missed opportunities. Wouldn't the story have benefited from Jill exploring the RPD instead of Carlos? Her stumbling across Brad, losing his humanity to the virus, and being the one to have to put him out of his misery would be a gut-wrenching moment for her. This change in narrative would also provide more of a purpose for Brad in the opening of the game. Maybe in the process of exploring the RPD, she finds her old STARS uniform and it triggers a flashback to the mansion incident. If Capcom is playing up the PTSD aspect of these characters in the remakes, playable callbacks to the other games would be a cool nod to other titles and would thematically make complete sense. Take for example if they remade Resident Evil 6 in the future.
I just shot the president.
What if the Tall Oaks outbreak affected Leon in such a way that he briefly lost touch with reality during the incident? Instead of being unaffected like in the original, what if he started accidentally addressing Helena as Claire before catching himself? Or if in having to put down the president, he remembers putting down Marvin? Inclusions such as these in the narrative would justify the existence of these remakes and will lend more believability to the characters. You see hints of this idea in the concept art, depicting Jill's apartment and in the opening cutscene. Having these scenes demonstrates that these events in the timeline have weight to them. There is a difference between a serialized drama and an ongoing narrative. A spin-off game should be in a vacuum. However, a mainline entry should have far-reaching impact and implications. This is a problem that I also have with the original Resident Evil 3. Resident Evil 3 has always been a relatively inconsequential entry from a lore and characterization standpoint. Jill is the same static character from beginning to end. None of the characters introduced in this game ever appear or get mentioned at any other point in the franchise, and all of the basic beats of the Raccoon City incident were already established in Resident Evil 2 the year prior. Aside from introducing the NE Alpha parasite and giving an excuse for Jill to look 24 in her 50s, pretty much nothing in this game affects the rest of the continuity. Plenty of fans are skeptical of the remake trend. Common critiques are that the remakes cut too much content from the originals, they don't take enough advantage to improve lore, and they miss the spirit of the games they were trying to recapture. It is fair to say that Resident Evil 3 Remake is the perfect example of these critiques. Resident Evil 3 Remake is a classic case of a game getting rushed out to capitalize on the hype for a successful predecessor. This is very unfortunate as RE3 Remake had an astounding amount of potential. The RE3 Remake we got feels like an afterthought, a sad husk of nostalgia. Time passed, and fans wondered which game would be next in line to receive the remake treatment. Some clamored for Code Veronica, others yearned for Zero, and some fans even wanted spin-offs like Outbreak to be remade. None of them got their wish. Not yet, anyways.
Can't save her. You can't save anyone.
This time, it can be different. It has to.
Capcom announced during a PlayStation livestream in June of 2022 that Resident Evil 4 would be the next game to receive the remake treatment. This decision received mixed reception, as many fans thought the game was too recent to necessitate a remake. To some fans, this decision felt like a shameless way to print money. Fans asked, why not remake either Code Veronica or Zero so that you can improve flawed games? This was not necessarily an opinion I shared.
Where's everyone going? Bingo?
RE4 Remake, released on March 24th, 2023, was the one I was looking forward to the most. The original RE4 holds a special place in my heart as a charming action game that, while corny at times, is a genuinely fun experience. Speedrunning this game adds to the entertainment, particularly with the Ditman glitch, which enables the player to speed through the map by performing some shenanigans with the striker weapon. I'm a bit disappointed that this glitch was left out of the remake. You will find that fun emissions serve as a running theme for these remakes. There are elements of the original RE4 that I found myself longing for while playing the remake. I missed the cheesy dialogue that felt like a B-movie. I missed Leon's sassy attitude. I missed Louise calling Mendez the big cheese. And I miss Leon's old hair. I feel like he's too blonde in this game. Canonically, his hair color is listed as brown. Why is he looking like he walked off the set of Sweet Life of Zack and Cody? Those are just my nitpicks. I'm like Chris Chan bitching about Sonic's arm color, but I digress. Leon is a mixed bag in this title for me personally.
Think you can swallow me whole, huh?
He feels drastically different from his 2005 counterpart in terms of characterization. OG timeline Leon was colder, more detached from the events happening around him. He was snarky, flirty, suave, and unfazed. 2023 Leon is a world away from most of those descriptors. This Leon has a quiet, lingering sense of sorrow that underpins most of his dialogue. He shows up more prepared for his mission.
I was wondering if you might recognize a girl in this photograph.
He keeps his interactions strictly professional with Hunnigan, and he appreciates Ashley more as a sidekick.
We're a team, right?
Keep this up. I'll be out of a job.
This Leon is softer around the edges. He's a certified good boy.
Cute.
Aside from that, I really do appreciate what RE4 Remake improves. For starters, Ashley Graham is a drastically better character in this version.
Senorita has a name and it's Ashley.
She's better at fending for herself and doesn't scream, Leon! Every 2 milliseconds.
Leon!
I would really prefer if you would be quiet.
She's a lot less whiny and genuinely grows to care for Leon's well-being.
Leon, are you kidding me? Jumping across chandeliers, seriously, who does that?
What are you, my mother?
In the original, Ashley and Leon's dynamic was more apathetic babysitter drags along bratty child.
Ugh, it stinks.
Sure does.
No way, Leon.
Way.
Are you out of your mind?
I knew you'd be fine if you landed on your butt.
Versus remake Ashley and Leon's dynamic of extensive collaboration. With that being said, Ashley's mechanics are somehow worse in this game. There's less places to get her to hide in, and she doesn't duck reliably. The amount of times I accidentally shot her is ridiculous. She's the second coming of the dog from Duck Hunt. I would be sailing through the chapter, only to have Ashley walking in front of my line of fire and getting herself decimated.
Like this?
She makes the water room in chapter 7 nearly unplayable on higher difficulties. I don't get why Sheva Alomar in Resident Evil 5 got so much hate for her AI, and Ashley target practice Graham doesn't. She gets killed more than a Kennedy, and I'm not talking about Leon. Or maybe I am. Another character that received a massive upgrade is Louise.
Then come, Sancho Panza. Let us rescue the Princess Dulcinea.
You can hurt yourself.
Hey, that was my dance.
Louise has more plot significance and increased screen time in this iteration. He isn't just some side character who Leon doesn't even care about enough to pronounce his name correctly when he dies.
Louise!
I know the feeling.
What?
What is that fucking name?
I also think he received a better death this time around. Instead of getting stabbed by Sadler's dick, he gets shanked by Krauser, shoots at Krauser to protect Leon, and has a touching moment with Leon before he fades off into that sweet goodnight. He's got some pretty sick lore this time around, with him becoming traumatized after witnessing his grandfather's infection and subsequent death at the hands of the villagers, retreating into the story of Don Quixote as a maladaptive coping mechanism, working for Umbrella, oh yeah, and creating the motherfucking nemesis! Luis's redemption arc is more of a focal point with his character in this iteration. He actively tries to redeem himself from his past of being an Umbrella researcher. Luis stands as the only Umbrella scientist in the series to have a change of heart. This ties into the larger story motifs in this remake. The remake of Resident Evil 4 places a large emphasis on redemption, asking the question if people can truly change. This concept is seen not only in Luis's story, but also in interactions between Leon and Ada, which is why I really wish Capcom would have kept the moth patterns for Ada's dress. Moths undergo metamorphosis, fitting for a character like Ada who frequently shifts alliances. The symbolism was right there. The story also benefits from callbacks to Operation Javier from a Wii spin-off game called Resident Evil Darkside Chronicles and callbacks to Resident Evil 2 Remake. This inclusion works wonders at making the franchise's many games feel continuous and interconnected. These connections serve mainly to flesh out one particular villain, a ghost of Leon's past. The villains in RE4 are meant to be more like Saturday cartoon villains than serious antagonists, aside for a notable exception. I'm admittedly mixed in terms of my thoughts on the villains. Let's start with the big cheese himself, Torres Mendez. Mendez is the same as he was in the original. Nothing to really note here. Next villain, Ramon Salazar. Instead of being a short king, he's a manlet Castellan. His family spent generations keeping the Plaga sealed away, only for Ramon to join a cult and fuck up everything his ancestors worked for, just like the baby boomers. Ramon gets considerably less time to shine in this game than in the original. He doesn't hack into Leon's comms network anymore, and his memorability suffers as a result. Ramon and Leon had iconic interactions in the original, such as,
"If you don't need me, then get off my back, old man."
I've been expecting you, my brethren.
"No thanks, bro."
I've sent my right hand to dispose of you.
Your right hand comes off?
He only interacts with Leon maybe 3 or 4 times in the remake. Plus, he doesn't have a full statue of himself to chase you with this time around. Guess I'll just have to settle for recreating the egg golem boss fight from Sonic Adventure 2. Despite a third of this game taking place in his castle, Ramon is barely a footnote. Haha, barely a foot, because he's short! You know who isn't short? This blonde serving of all-American beef right here! Jack Krauser is the biggest hater, and yet I get the feeling that deep down, he wants to recreate Brokeback Mountain with Leon.
Let's see it, rookie. You're too soft. You were wide open. I can't wait to see you rise.
This guy only talks in the high decibel range. He also sounds like Grunkle Stan from Gravity Falls when he yells.
You and me are two sides of the same coin.
My ex-wife still misses me, but her aim is getting better. Her aim is getting better.
Perhaps Capcom is trying to go for a Full Metal Jacket drill sergeant vibe for Krauser. I honestly prefer the more subdued and subtle performance of the original.
Like you, I'm American.
The whole point of Krauser is that he's a reflection of who Leon could have been if he gave into nihilism in the wake of his trauma. He's a foil. It made more sense for him to be subdued to juxtapose Leon's wisecracking. In a few ways, Jack Krauser is to Leon Kennedy what Albert Wesker is to Chris Redfield, a mentor turned foe who values power at the expense of everything else. His character would have been more impactful to the broader audience if we received a remake or remaster of Darkside Chronicles. As it stands, he hates Leon because he was the only other survivor in a mission in which the government left them both to die. How is that Leon's fault? And why get pissed at him?
What'd he say fuck me for?
Next is Osmond Sadler. He is so forgettable in this rendition. If he didn't pop up every once in a while to remind Leon to cover his drink around him at the bar, I'd have no clue who he is. In the original, he was campy, foppish, and theatrical.
My name is Osmond Sadler, the master of this fine religious community.
But here, he just feels like a generic evil guy. His only noteworthy trait is having a name that reminds me of Adam Sandler.
You blew it!
His remake design looks more like an Outlast character than a Resident Evil one. My snark aside, I do appreciate how this version of Sadler plays mind games with Leon and Ashley. The idea of slowly fading into a hive mind is a concept rife with horrifying implications, and I love when that idea is explored in more depth. There are notable gameplay additions present in this entry. The photo mode is a wonderful addition that I adore, perfect for YouTube thumbnails and goofing around. RE4 Remake still carries over the model viewer menu from Resident Evil 2 Remake and Resident Evil 3 Remake that I also appreciate, but that photo mode is just something else. Never has it been so easy to take unhinged gameplay photos uncomfortably close to Leon's face. The knife parry mechanic, it's the icing on top of the combat cake. It feels satisfying to master. This mechanic is also put to great use during the fight against Jack Krauser, serving a narrative purpose and demonstrating how far Leon has come as a skilled combatant since his harrowing experience in Raccoon City. This mechanic narratively marks the transition between rookie cop and adept government agent. And with the enemies in this game, we need all the skills we can get. The enemies in this game can and will overpower you very quickly. They swarm the player like crazy. There's just so many Ganados. So many
damn enemies, as per usual!
It feels like the showers at Ram Ranch. It can be incredibly frustrating to get grabbed by these nutcases.
These spaghetti head start wiggling out!
Picture this. You walk into a room. You think, the coast is clear. That is until the bingo attending Plaga Glazers dogpile you and gouge your eyes out. If I wanted to get ganged up on, I'd go to a Diddy Freak-Off party. And don't even get me started on the Regenerators. I was looking at the model viewer and wondering why nobody in this game has any kind of booty meat on them until I saw this lumbering lard ass on screen. Why'd Capcom make these guys thicker than a bowl of oatmeal?
I was like, damn nigga, what you doing out here with all this ass? Double cheeked up on a Thursday afternoon.
Damn, I didn't know Los Illuminados was creating sentient BBLs. Regenerators also turn into real pricks when damaged. No, really, actual pricks. And I swear you encounter a higher number of enemies when compared to the original. Why is there such an insane volume of enemies? Why are they all bullet sponges? Not to mention the fact that the infinite rocket launcher can now damage you when it didn't in the other remakes. That kinda sucks. Especially in Ashley escort chapters because, as we've established, Ashley has a penchant for walking through your line of fire. I worked hard for that damn weapon and it feels more like a liability than a reward.
I am flattered, but I'm a one-lady type of guy.
With some of my critiques of this game, you might come to the conclusion that I dislike or even hate this game. The truth is to the contrary. This game was my husband's favorite game to replay for this video, and for good reason. For the most part, this remake is more loyal to the original than the other remakes were to their respective originals, with the exception of Resident Evil 1 Remake. Resident Evil 4 Remake's base game is a robust experience that offers hours upon hours of quality gameplay, although that's not where our journey with this game ends. The Separate Ways DLC completes the package that is the Resident Evil 4 Remake. The best way to describe Separate Ways is that it accomplishes what the second run in RE2 Remake should have, a fresh way to experience a familiar story. Let's get to the elephant in the room, Ada Wong's voice.
You know I don't work in town.
I mean this in the most respectful way possible. Ada sounds like she popped an Ambien before arriving at the island. She sounds so bored and sluggish. I'm not blaming the voice actress necessarily. I have no way of knowing what direction she was giving during the recording of the lines, but here's what confuses me. Some voice lines sound pretty good.
What is wrong with me?
The potential was there, but the direction probably sullied the performance. This shortcoming is remedied a tiny bit with the DLC. Don't get me wrong, Ada's still a sleepy plank of wood who barely emotes, but her campaign does so much justice to characters like Louise and Albert Wesker. For example, Louise starts off as apathetic to the suffering around him. He's seen dancing in the dungeon while other prisoners are executed. But as the story progresses, Louise flings himself into a burning laboratory in a desperate effort to retrieve a serum that staves off the Plaga infection for Leon and Ashley. Ada saves him, only for Krauser to stab him just 2 chapters later. This added detail further twists the knife regarding Louise's tragic demise. Even in death, he fears that he may never be redeemed. Compare this with the other character prominent in Ada's campaign, longtime series antagonist Albert Wesker. This short portrayal of Wesker is absolutely perfect, and I hope we get to see him again in either an RE5 remake or a Code Veronica remake. I love how every time he shows up after RE1, he's always snatching an infected body, as seen with with Steve from Code Veronica and Jack Krauser in this game. He has the right amount of calculated menace. He's cold and detached, a mirror image of who Ada could have been if she were to abandon the angel on her shoulder. Ada is incredibly self-motivated. She's not a goody two-shoes like Leon, but she's also not a monster like Wesker. She's deceitful and is willing to use anyone to achieve her goals, but she makes the right decision when it counts. Her interactions with Leon in these remakes exemplifies what works about these characters in the first place. Leon has a very black and white worldview. He doesn't have much room for nuance. Ada challenges this mindset. She is nuanced. She exists between right and wrong, much to Leon's dismay and curiosity. The other interesting aspect of the Separate Ways DLC is that it feels more like a full game than Resident Evil 3 Remake. It's easily one of the most fleshed out DLCs in any game I've played in recent years. It's 3 hours longer than the original Separate Ways and has plenty of engaging puzzles to solve. The laser room's grand return and the addition of villains such as Pasanta and Martinico make this particular adventure quite the treat. Overall, I would describe Resident Evil 4 Remake as an entertaining game that works better within the context of being its own entity instead of functioning as a remake. In summary, the remakes of 1 through 4 each have unique approaches to recapturing the vision of their original counterparts. Each remake presents a different lesson that the creatives at Capcom can use to create a more perfect remake. Resident Evil 1 Remake had an amazing atmosphere and was loyal to the source material, but suffered from subpar writing and a lack of a canon ending. Resident Evil 2 Remake had balanced gameplay and a great atmosphere, but lacked an impactful second-run scenario. Resident Evil 3 Remake transformed a mediocre side character into a lovable fan favorite, but butchered literally everything else in the game. And Resident Evil 4 Remake had a ton of replay value and added lore, but lost some of the charm present in its 2005 counterpart. I want another remake of the first Resident Evil. I'd love to see the amazing gothic architecture and timeless character designs receive a respectful glow up, partly for selfish reasons, but also for practical reasons. The original 1996 release is almost 30 years old, and the remake is 22 years old. It is safe to say that gameplay standards, storytelling, hardware, and graphics have evolved substantially in that time frame. This move could also reinvigorate the franchise and regenerate interest in a 3-decade-long storyline. The next generation of players deserve to experience this classic game in a refreshing way, free from previous technical limitations. Imagine a fully explorable Spencer Mansion, complete with robust modern lighting engines, real-time environments, and enhanced character models that capture the body horror on display. A remake could also improve characters' chemistry and unshelve neglected characters. The sky's the limit. I want to hear your thoughts. Do you think the original game should be remade again? Why or why not? Are there any other Resident Evil games that are more deserving of a thorough revisit? Leave your answers in the comments below. And while you're here, click those like and subscribe buttons for more video essays. If you have any suggestions for future topics, let me know in the comments section. I want to give a huge thanks to my husband Mark for helping me record gameplay for this video, a huge thanks to my mom for reviewing the script with me in the car every morning before work, and a huge thanks to all of you for watching this video I spent a year and a half working on. That's all for now. Bye! Okay, enough fucking around. I actually have to record the video. To some fans, this decision felt like a fucking Jesus Christ! Okay. I honestly preferred the more subdued and subtle performance of the original. Performance of the original. A way that he briefly touched himself. Okay, I'm stupid. I honestly prefer the more subdued and subtle performance. Subtle? God damn it! As a skilled combatant since his heroin experience. Yeah, he was doing drugs. God damn it.
Women.